Hello YouTube world, this is Nicholas Montes and welcome back to the Movie Archivist everyone. And in today's video, first off, happy 4th of July everyone, happy America's birthday. I know that some people may not want to celebrate today, but honestly, I think that this is a day for an excuse to eat hot dogs. Whatever. I wanted to sort of celebrate, not really just America today, but a way to celebrate American cinema. So, in the last few months, I've been watching the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s movies, both rewatching and watching for the very first time. And because of that, I thought, why not go ahead and rank the golden age of Hollywood? Now, it's kind of like interesting into where the golden age of Hollywood ends, but in my opinion, I think the golden age of Hollywood is basically the films where it has a classic like film opening. It has the quality sounds weird, and then it basically just ends abruptly and doesn't show the credits at the end. That's kind of how I view it. With that said, let's go ahead and get started talking about my top 10 favorite golden age films of all time. Alright, so coming to number 10, this was an interesting one because I was trying to decide of what films did I want to pick. Did I want to choose Singing in the Rain, Little Caesar, King Kong, or do I go with Gone with the Wind? And all those films kind of resonate with me on personal levels. They resonate with me like on enjoyable levels. But I think for me, the film I decided to go with, in honor of this list, I decided to go with Gone with the Wind. And superficially, I don't think this is the most enjoyable film on this list. That's kind of why it's a lot lower. But the reason why it's on this list is because I think as a first Technicolor epic film, this movie really works. From the Technicolor is amazing, it looks beautiful, but also this large epic story with Scarlett O'Hara, it's just so fantastic. And the score is amazing, all the characters are well done, and as someone that kind of wants to make a 3 hour long epic film one day, this is a true inspiration for that. So, this movie is fantastic on all levels. At number 9, I have Miracle on 34th Street. Now, this probably doesn't fit into this kind of list because there's just so many other beloved films of the golden age of Hollywood. But this one for me is actually one of my personal favorites. And that it kind of is the classic Santa Claus story before we ever got Santa Claus with Tim Allen. Where essentially there was a guy in a mall costume, in a mall Santa costume, and he was actually Santa Claus. And that premise alone just makes for a very entertaining 1940s film, Christmas movie. And it works. The guy that plays Santa Claus is very charming. The whole cast is very believable in that the parents tried to not make it believe that it's Santa Claus. Like, the Christmas magic is there while being a very good 1940s movie. It just works all around. Now we have Psycho, back to, one of those other defining, 1960s films, but also one of the most defining horror films because it truly was the first time where we saw a horror movie and our main protagonist literally gets killed in, like, the first act. And then the second act is all about, like, finding out what happened, and then the third act is finding out who was the killer. And really, the way this whole film was, like, set up, it's set up beautifully. It really is. It's a beautifully set up film. It's so iconic. I love it. And honestly, I loved it the first time I saw it. At number 7, I have Pinocchio. Now, this would be a lie if I watched it, but, I truly love this movie. Now, in some cases, people would probably say, you should put Snow White above this. I can, like, understand, but at the same time, I think Pinocchio is honestly the better film as time has passed on. I think what works so well about this is, one, I love the animation. I think the animation is stellar. I think it's phenomenal. But also, I think the story here just, and the adventure is just a lot more exciting. Whereas Snow White felt a lot more small scale. Even though, these animated films are, like, done on incredibly, great lengths, these movies, like, this movie in particular, like, just created a world, like, the underwater sequences were just so beautiful and so chaotic and cathartic. It's just so crazy. But also, it makes you feel all the emotions you're supposed to feel in Disney. Laughing, crying. Well, I don't know about crying, but you definitely feel sad when Pinocchio, like, almost gets eaten by the whale. Overall, it's a satisfying Disney film, and I truly love this movie. At number 6 is It Happened One Night. This was a film that when I first heard about it, I was like, so it's the invention of the screwball comedy. So it's going to be like an inappropriate movie? Okay, well, let's see what this is about. And then I saw it and I realized I think that this is like the origin of the rom-com, the classic rom-com. And it really is a sweet movie because these two leads, they're very charming. Like those two leads in the film, they're so charming. They're so funny, and like I was actually catching myself laughing at times. Like it was actually really funny, but also like you're entertained by them. It's like a great rom com. And then again, I'm not really into romance movies like that, and this one was honestly perfect. All right, next up we have To Kill a Mockingbird. Now this movie, I feel like does a lot of unique things right well, where it's not just dealing with a story about a black man being accused of raping a white woman, but it's also dealing with life in the South, based on some parts of true story, but it's dealing with every aspect of the South, whether it's the good people, the bad, and the kids. Like everybody has their own perspective, and it's an interesting movie in the way perceived, and especially learning about this in my English class in senior year of high school. This was a very interesting story that expanded my mind about it, and that's the kind of thing you can learn about when you're learning about a book that's a movie but also a book. It's a really interesting story, so I overall really loved To Kill a Mockingbird. Next up we have Dumbo. In my opinion, I think that this is truly one of the best Disney movies out there. It is on the shorter side. It is pretty short, but at the same time, this doesn't disappoint of it being just an absolute Disney classic where they found a way to make an hour and 4 minutes so memorable by telling this story about this baby elephant where, he was born with big ears. He happened to be born with big ears. And throughout the entire movie, people are just making fun of him, thinking that he will not have a place in the circus, don't have a place in this world. But realize his ears are actually his biggest strength because he can use them to fly and soar to great heights. And it's a brilliant story that has great music. Well, okay, I don't know about great music, but it's got good songs in it. Great animation, wonderful sequences, and just a brilliant movie from Disney that it's so memorable. And I'm surprised people don't talk about it more. Now we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Throughout the Golden Age, I was not the biggest fan of Westerns. All those John Ford movies he made in the 1930s and 50s, was not a fan of them. But then it wasn't until Sergio Leone decided to take over and be the new Western director. And he basically created a bunch of Westerns that I gravitated towards. And I absolutely fell in love with these movies. Now, I particularly fell in love with The Good and Bad, the Ugly. I've seen the other films. They're not as crazy. But this one, of course, the performances in this movie and the story, nothing really special about them. But what makes the film so captivating is these, like the way that pretty much all the filmmaking aspects. The way it does the pausing shots, the way it does like all the tracking shots, the way that it uses silence to build suspense and to create the world, it's such a fantastic thing that they did. Plus the score from Sergio Leone is, well, not Sergio, Ennio Corino, I don't know how to say his name. That guy did a fantastic, the filmmaking aspects of this movie are so good. And it's probably the best filmmaking aspects I've ever seen on film. Plus, I also love that the score was actually recorded while they're filming. Like, that makes the movie even more special. So, I love The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. At number 2 is going to be probably one of my favorite musicals of the 1960s, and that is The Sound of Music. Honestly, when I first saw this, even though it was very long, I just instantly fell in love with this. Where this is truly musical as at its finest. Where you just have this character played by Julie Andrews who decides to babysit all this Bart Trap family. I don't know how to say their name. And you realize this is a family that kind of lost their mother. So when they lost their mother, they kind of lost the joy in their family's lives. So Julie Andrews' job is to kind of try to bring that joy back into their life. And almost every song in this movie is quite magical. The Do Re Mi song honestly gets me chills every time I listen to it, or even when I watch it. It's such a magical like experience to watch. Um, and to see Julie Andrews join this family, it's so magical. It's so mesmerizing. I absolutely love this movie. But easily coming in first place, my favorite Golden Age Hollywood movie isn't, of course, It's a Wonderful Life. This is a movie that kind of stands the test of time because of, like, I guess, 1940s films. It really does stand out to where this was, I think, besides like Wizard of Oz or any older Disney movie, this would probably be my favorite old movie ever. And the reason I say that is because it really did something that was so powerful to where it felt like a classic as soon as I watched it, but at the same time it felt modern to the point where I was still able to understand and you were able to be moved by this story where you have this man who throughout his whole life has had dreams, he's had goals, but there's always been stuff that's been put in his way to where he can't access that. He can't achieve his goals. And everybody else, they get to do what they want to do, but he's still being stuck in his job, in his dad's job, and he doesn't want to do that. And, you know, by the end of the movie, he was gonna like go kill himself, and he was gonna have to earn money, and then he sees a world without him. Like, what would the world be like without him? And it really, in many ways, because I've thought of like what would the world be like if I wasn't there, and I do think about like what are the impacts on people, like what kind of impact do I make on people in much of themselves, and sometimes you make a good impact on people, sometimes you make a bad impact, but at the same time it's like you do your job as a human, I think you're doing something right. And especially I even get a little emotional at the end when all the people just kind of come back and they give him like all the money that he needs to pay his debt, and it's just so powerful. So for me, It's a Wonderful Life is my favorite Golden Age Hollywood movie. So yeah, happy 4th of July, everybody. Happy America Day. If you don't support America, I understand. I know it's kind of terrible right now, but also if you don't want to celebrate, I completely understand. But keep living and always talk movies too.